Welcome to the Facebook Community Guidelines. Part 3, Objectionable Content. Section 12, Hate Speech. We do not allow hate speech on Facebook because it creates an environment of intimidation and exclusion, and in some cases may promote real-world violence. We define hate speech as a direct attack on people based on what we call protected characteristics: race, ethnicity, national origin, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, sex, gender, gender identity, and serious disability or disease. We also provide some protections for immigration status. We define attack as violent or dehumanizing speech, statements of inferiority, or calls for exclusion or segregation. We separate attacks into 3 tiers of severity, as described below. Sometimes people share content containing someone else's hate speech for the purpose of raising awareness or educating others. Similarly, in some cases, words or terms that might otherwise violate our standards are used self-referentially or in an empowering way. When this is the case, we allow content, but we expect people to clearly indicate their intent, which helps us better understand why they shared it. Where the intention is unclear, we may remove the content. We allow humor and social commentary related to these topics. In addition, we believe that people are more responsible when they share this kind of commentary using their authentic identity. Google search Facebook Hard Questions blog to learn more about their approach to hate speech. Do not post. Tier 1 attacks. Tier 1 attacks are which a target or person or group of people who share one of the above listed characteristics or immigration status, including all subsets, except those described as having carried out violent crimes or sexual offenses, where attack is defined as any violent speech or support for death, disease, harm. Dehumanizing speech, including but not limited to reference or comparison to filth, bacteria, disease, or feces. Reference or comparison to animals that are culturally perceived as intellectually or physically inferior. Reference or comparison to subhumanity. Mocking the concept, events, or victims of hate crimes, even if no real person is depicted in an image. Designating dehumanizing comparisons in both written and visual form. Tier 2 attacks. Tier 2 attacks, which target a person or group of people who share any of the above listed characteristics, where attack is defined as statements of inferiority, implying a person or a group's physical, mental, or moral deficiency. Physical, including but not limited to deformed, undeveloped, hideous, ugly. Mental, including but not limited to retarded, cretin, low IQ, stupid, idiot. moral, including but not limited to slutty, fraud, cheap, free riders. Expressions of contempt, including but not limited to I hate, I don't like, X are the worst. Expressions of disgust, including but not limited to gross, vile, disgusting. Cursing at a person or group of people who share protected characteristics. Tier 3 attacks. Tier 3 attacks, which are calls to exclude or segregate a person or group of people based on the above listed characteristics. We do not allow criticism of immigration policies and arguments for restricting those policies. Content that describes or negatively targets people with slurs, where slurs are defined as words commonly used as insulting labels for the above listed characteristics. 13. Graphic violence. Policy rationale. We remove content that glorifies violence or celebrates the suffering or humiliation of others because it may create an environment that discourages participation. We allow graphic content with some limitations to help people raise awareness about issues. We know that people have the value, the ability to discuss the important issues in life, like human rights abuses or acts of terrorism. We also know that people have been different sensitivities with regards to graphic and violent content. For that reason, we add a warning label to especially graphic or violent content so that it is not available to people under the age of 18, and so that people are aware of the graphic or violent nature before they click to see it. Do not post imagery of violence committed against real people or animals with comments or captions by the posters that contain enjoyment of suffering, enjoyment of humiliation, erotic response to suffering, remarks that speak positively of the violence, or remarks indicating that the poster is sharing footage for sensational viewing pleasure. Videos of dying, wounded, or dead people, if they contain dismemberment, unless in a medical setting, visible internal organs, charred or burning people, victims of cannibalism. For the following content, we include a warning screen so that people are aware the content may be disturbing. We also limit the ability to view the content to adults ages 18 and older. Imagery featuring mutilated people, if it contains the following in a medical setting: dismemberment, visible internal organs, charred or burning people, victims of cannibalism, throat slitting. Videos of self-immolation when that action is a form of political speech or newsworthy. Photos of wounded or dead people if they show dismemberment, visible internal organs, charred or burning people, victims of cannibalism, throat slitting. Imagery featuring animals that shows dismemberment, visible internal organs, charred or burning animals. Videos of animal abuse defined as repeated kicking or beating of a live animal by a person, acts of torture by a person committed against animals, repeated biting of a live animal by a person for abusive purposes, repeated animal-to-animal biting in staged fights, videos of animals being killed in a hunting, manufacturing, or food preparation, processing context. Videos that show child abuse, defined as repeated kicking, beating, slapping, or stepping on by an adult or animal, strangling or suffocating by an adult or animal, drowning by an adult or animal, biting through skin by an adult or animal, poisoning by an adult, forcible restraint by an adult, inflicting of burn or cut wounds by an adult, forcible smoking, tossing, rotating, or shaking of an infant too young to stand by their wrists, ankles, arms, legs, or neck. Videos that show the violent death of a person or people by accident or murder when they depict the deceased body. Still images depicting the violent death of a person or people. Videos that show acts of torture committed against a person or people. Videos of physical bullying or violence against minors in a fight context shared with a condemning action. 14. Adult nudity and sexual activity. Policy rationale. We restrict the display of nudity or sexual activity because some of the people in our community may be sensitive to this type of content. Additionally, we default to removing sexual imagery to prevent the sharing of non-consensual or underage content. Restrictions on the display of sexual activity also apply to digitally created content, unless it is posted for educational, humorous, or satirical purposes. Our nudity policies have become more nuanced over time. We understand that nudity can be shared for a variety of reasons, including as a form of protest, to raise awareness about a cause, or for educational or medical reasons. Where such intent is clear, we make allowances for the content. For example, while we restrict some images of female breasts that include the nipple, we allow other images, including those depicting acts of protest and actively engaged in breastfeeding, and photos of post-mastectomy scarring. We also allow photographs of paintings, sculptures, and other art that depicts nude figures. Do not post images of real nude adults, where nudity is defined as visible genitalia, visible anus, and or fully nude close-up of buttocks, unless photoshopped on a public figure. Uncovered female nipples, except in the context of breastfeeding, birth-giving, and after-birth moments. Health, for example, post-mastectomy, breast cancer awareness, or gender confirmation surgery, or an act of protest. Sexual activity, including sexual intercourse. Explicit sexual intercourse, defined as mouth or genitals entering or in contact with another person's genitals or anus, where at least one person's genitals are nude. Implied sexual intercourse, defined as mouth or genitals entering or in contact with another person's genitals or anus, even when the contact is not directly visible, except in cases of a sexual health context. Advertisements and recognized fictional images, or with indicators of fiction. Other sexual activities, including, but not limited to, erections, presence of byproducts of sexual activity, stimulating genitals or anus, even if above or under clothing, use of sex toys, even if above or under clothing, stimulation of naked human nipples, squeezing naked female breast, except in breastfeeding context, fetish that involves content, acts that are likely to lead to the death of a person or an animal, dismemberment, cannibalism, feces, urine, spit, menstruation, or vomit. Digital content that meets our definition of sexual activity, unless any of the following conditions exist. Content was posted in a satirical or humorous context. Content was posted in an educational or scientific context. Imagery is not sufficiently detailed, and only body shapes or contours are visible. Sexually explicit language, defined as description that goes beyond mere mention of a state of sexual arousal, an act of sexual intercourse, unless posted in an attempt at humor or satire, or if educational in nature. Break. Would you like to go on the adventure of a lifetime? Consider taking the Storm Seminar with Storm Chaser Terry Tyler. Go to www.stormnavigator.biz and sign up for a tour. Remember, it's for the bold. End break. 15. Cruel and insensitive. Policy rationale. We believe that people share and connect more freely when they do not feel targeted based on their vulnerabilities. As such, we have higher expectations for content that we call cruel and insensitive, which we define as content that targets victims of serious physical or emotional harm. Do not post content that depicts real people and mocks their implied or actual serious physical injuries, disease or disability, non-consensual sexual touching, or premature death. 16. Spam. Policy rationale. We work hard to limit the spread of commercial spam to prevent false advertising, fraud, and security breaches, all of which detract from people's ability to share and connect. We do not allow people to use misleading or inaccurate information to collect likes, followers, or shares. Do not artificially increase distribution for financial gain. Create or use fake accounts or compromise other people's accounts to impersonate or pretend to be a business, organization, public figure, or private individual. Attempt to create connections, create content, or message people. Restrict access to content by requiring people to like, share, or recommend before viewing. Encourage likes, shares, or clicks under false pretenses. Maliciously use login credentials or personally identifiable information by attempting to gather or share login credentials or personally identifiable information. Using another person's login credentials or personality. Using another person's login credentials or personally identifiable information. Promise non-existent Facebook features. 17. Misrepresentation. Policy rationale. Authenticity is the cornerstone of our community. We believe that people are more accountable for their statements and actions when they use their authentic identities. That's why we require people to connect on Facebook using the name they go by in everyday life. Our authenticity policies are intended to create a safe environment where people can trust and hold one another accountable. Do not misrepresent your identity by using a name that does not abide by our name policies, providing a false date of birth, misuse our profiles product by creating a profile for someone under 13 years old, maintaining multiple accounts, creating inauthentic profiles, sharing an account with any other person, creating another account after being banned from the site, evading the registration requirements outlined in our terms of service, impersonate others by using their images with the explicit aim to deceive people, creating a profile assuming the persona of or speaking of another person or entity, creating a page that speaks for another person or entity without the authorization when the authorized party objects to the content. Engage in inauthentic behavior, which includes creating, managing, or otherwise perpetuating accounts that are fake, accounts that have fake names, accounts that participate in coordinated, inauthentic behavior, meaning that multiple accounts are working together to do any of the following: mislead people about the origin of the content, mislead people about the destination of links of our services. For example, providing a display URL that does not match the destination URL. Mislead people in an attempt to encourage shares, likes, or clicks. 18. False news. Policy rationale. Reducing the spread of false news on Facebook is a responsibility that we take seriously. We also recognize that this is a challenging and sensitive issue. We want to help people stay informed without stifling productive public discourse. There is also a fine line between false news and satire or opinion. For these reasons, we don't remove false news from Facebook, but instead significantly reduce its distribution by showing it lower in the news feeds. We are working to build a more informed community and reduce the spread of false news in a number of different ways, namely by disrupting economic incentives for people, pages, domains that propagate misinformation, using various signals, including feedback from our community, to inform a machine learning model that predicts which stories may be false. Reducing the distribution of content rated as false by independent third-party fact checkers. Empowering people to decide for themselves what to read, trust, and share by informing them with more context and promoting news literacy. Collaborating with academics and other organizations to help solve this challenging issue. 19. Memorialization. Policy rationale. When we learn that someone has passed away, we memorialize the account by adding "remembering" above the name on the person's profile. This makes it clear that the account is now a memorial site and protects it against attempted logins and fraudulent activity. We do not remove, update, or change anything about the profile or the account because we want to respect the choices someone made while still alive. We have also made it possible for people to identify a legacy contact to look for after their account, after they pass away. People can let us know in advance if they want their account permanently deleted when they die. We may delete profiles when the next of kin tells us that the person who passed away would have preferred that we delete the account rather than memorialize it. Visit Hard Questions for more information about memorialization policy and process. Once we become aware that a person has passed away, their account is secured and memorialized by adding "remembering" above the name on the person's profile. The profile or account is not updated or otherwise changed in any way. Immediate family members can also request that we remove a loved one's profile. 20. Intellectual property. Policy rationale. Facebook takes intellectual property rights seriously and believes that they are important to promoting expression, creativity, and innovation in our community. You own all the content and information you post on Facebook. and you control how it is shared through your privacy and application settings. However, before the sharing of content on Facebook, please be sure you have the right to do so. We also ask that you respect other people's copyrights, trademarks, and other legal rights. We are committed to helping people and organizations promote and protect their intellectual property rights. Facebook's terms of service do not allow people to post content that violates someone else's intellectual property rights, including copyright and trademark. We publish information about the intellectual property reports we receive in our biannual transparency report, which can be accessed at https://transparency.facebook.com. Upon receipt of a report from a rights holder or an authorized representative, we will remove or restrict content that engages in copyright infringement or trademark infringement. 21. User requests. We comply with user requests for removal of their own account, requests for removal of a deceased user's account from a verified immediate family member or executor, requests for removal of an incapacitated user's account from an authorized representative. 22. Additional protection of minors. We comply with requests for removal of an underage account, government requests for removal of child abuse imagery, depicting, for example, beatings by an adult or strangling or suffocating by an adult. Legal guardian requests for removal of attacks on unintentionally famous minors. This is the end of the Community Standards broadcast. If you enjoyed this presentation, please subscribe below.